Moving to our first session, we'll try zooming out to the future and open up our minds to a disrupted new normal. And arguably, we live in an era of unprecedented disruption and exponential change. Radical shifts in the way we work, move, entertain, communicate, consume, and ultimately live had been apparent even before the pandemic, but had been since greatly accelerated and accentuated. Exponential change is not an intuitive concept for our linear mindsets to comprehend, yet this phenomenon will continue to affect our world beyond our imagination. In the first panel, we'll attempt to zoom out and take a glimpse of the future and the things to come. We'll focus on key areas affecting the future of cities and explore the role of innovation. I'm very happy to welcome Mrs. Nishita Henry, Chief Innovation Officer of Deloitte in the US, and Mr. Wassili Bertoen, Managing Director of Deloitte's Center for the Edge in Europe. Welcome, Nishita. Welcome, Wassili.
Thank you.
Nishita drives Deloitte's innovation agenda by working with cutting-edge technologies, engaging the startup community, and driving the transformation of next-gen technologies into practical solutions for companies and the US federal government. She works across the landscape of emerging technologies such as AI, cloud, cyber, IoT, quantum computing, and is responsible for sensing, incubating, and scaling innovative solutions to meet Deloitte clients' critical needs. Nishita, it would be very interesting to hear your thoughts about what are the different meanings and types of innovation and how innovation and business can converge to deliver measurable impact.
Perfect.
Nishita, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you all this morning. Morning my time, afternoon yours. I wish I could be there in person, but I'm coming to you from Washington, D.C. So for the question around innovation, it's a big word. It's a very popular word, and many people ascribe it different meanings. What I'll say about how we view innovation here at Deloitte is in multiple ways. One, we talk about delivery innovation. And that's really about how are you helping to automate, standardize, create consistent experiences with your existing services and solutions. And it's important that we do that, right, in order to continue to remain competitive, continue to make sure that we can deliver a higher quality product at a lower cost and provide better return for your stakeholders. The second type of innovation we talk about is new services. And that's really what I'm focused on creating net new businesses and thinking about ways your businesses can expand beyond the markets they're already playing in, right? Whether that be your services business getting into the product space, whether that be products businesses in certain industries entering new industries, whether that be rethinking economies in general. And so I'll talk a little bit about the fact that there are core, adjacent, and transformative innovations, right, that kind of continue to evolve your consistent set of services. Core, right, being things that are small tweaks around the edges, things you need to do to remain competitive. Hey, it's like a consumer package provider, instead of selling you a box of something, selling it to you in 100-calorie snack packs, right? They're continuing to evolve many different aspects of their core solutions. Then there are things that are adjacent. How do you get into net new businesses that use what you do at the core and is not too far away from your consistent set of solutions, but that get you into new spaces? And then there are transformative ones, right? Ones that truly turn the business on its head. And of course, we all think of the Ubers of the world. You think about Apple iTunes, you think about Netflix. It truly disrupted the way we consume those services. And it's important for organizations to have a balance across that spectrum. And then last, but certainly not least, the way we've got to think about innovation is all around talent. It's all around how do you attract, retain, and retrain your workforces. And it's important, right, from an attraction perspective, that you continue to rebrand yourself. You continue to demonstrate your ability to do new and exciting things, and that you understand the benefits to the talent that you're attracting so that you can articulate that to them. Then in the retain portion of it, right, we've got to continue to provide people the opportunities. You've got to be able to deliver on the promise that attracted them, and you've got to be able to show growth. How do people succeed and achieve in your organization? Is it just through pay? Is it through positions? Is it through different types of opportunities? Is it through mobility? Is it through flexibility? What's going to be your differentiator in retaining and in the attraction of this new workforce? And then, of course, there's the retrain bit. We obviously have to be in the business of making sure that we continue to enhance the mindset, the skill set, and the culture of existing organizations. So what are we doing not just to attract people that already come with a certain set of new skills, whether that be in AI or cloud or IoT, but how are we actually developing programs to enable your current workforce to gain those skills? Because they are the ones that really know the business the best. They probably have the depth in your clients the best. And so it's a lost opportunity if we're not investing in our current workforces. So those are the types of ways I think about innovation, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Very much, Nishita, for your insights. It's very interesting to understand what innovation really is. Moving from the East Coast to the other side of the Atlantic, to the Netherlands, Wassili and his team at Deloitte Center for the Edge help leaders understand the fundamental changes shaping the world, identify and make sense of emerging opportunities, and implement them into their business context. The Center for the Edge provides senior executives with alternative perspectives and approaches to strategy in a world that defies prediction. The disruption in the workplace and the ways of working, already a much talked about phenomenon and substantially accelerated by the pandemic, is a trend that affects not only companies and organizations, but also cities and countries. AI, diversified employment models like gigs and crowds, and the move to flex work and hybrid workspaces, to name a few, are forces that redefine the future of work and subsequently living. Wassili, thank you very much for being here with us today. We would be very interested to listen to your views on disruptive trends that shape our world in the post-COVID-19 new normal, and learn more about the future of work and the way that affects cities. Wassili?
Thank you, Wassilis. Do you hear me loud and clear?
Yes.
Great. Good afternoon. And great to be here. Well, let me share some first views, and then let's have the conversation together. We are zooming out constantly with the Center for the Edge, and we have also the last year, but many years, have many conversations with CEOs of the big corporates in whole Europe and also in the globe. And we discuss with them what's happening on your edge between business, technology, and society, and the insights of those years, but also especially last year, I will share with you now here in this session. And of course, what we saw is that what always have been a good idea, like the digital rise, has accelerated last year. And the urgency came up and has also, with urgency, created momentum for change, which is great. And what is the change? Of course, we have all heard about exponential technologies, because chips and bandwidth are becoming cheaper and cheaper in an exponential rate. People start being innovative with it, like we just heard about it. And with that innovation and with these exponential technologies, there's democratization of knowledge and of access of people to things, dematerialization, like everything goes to the cloud, and with that also, again, the accessibility, but also the cost go down, and demonetization. And let me give some examples. That this combination creates eroding barriers to learning, which I think we also talk about today. An example is first build of General Electric. That is an innovation hub on the edge of General Electric. And that was meant to accelerate that product innovation, as we just learned, from years to months. And the key thing there is that with the eroding barriers, with the access of knowledge, they create an experimentation zone where all talent could come in and just aim to experiment and to bring in new products very soon to the market. I think that's a great learning curve. The barriers to entry, Amazon, of course, with the cloud services, and many companies now can easily enter and become a company and start their own company on their platforms. And commercialization, like sourcing platforms like Indiegogo and others. And what does it also, basically, if we zoom out a little bit, is that the last decades and over a century maybe, we have learned in the industrial age that we organize around manpower with a lot of assets and stocks of our own, being in our own factory at our own place. and focusing on efficiency, making it every day 1% better or every year. So it's about planning and pushing your product to the market. And that's not the world we're in now. Oh, sorry. It's a world that's about exponential growth, and you need to organize our digital power, really start digital first. And if you do that, you can tap into external flows of knowledge, like we do now with yours in Greece. And then pulling the assets together and focusing on scalable learning. The one that learns fast is much more successful than just focusing on efficiency. And then what does it mean on a broader scale? What do we see happening where the CEOs are struggling with and corporates, and where you can maybe help with your talent pool, is that we were focusing on a mission, but it's of course now about purpose. What do we really add value to the society and to our customers? From linear to exponential, we discussed add digital first. Of course, Tesla is a great example. If you really rethink a model, and it's about digital and of course also about energy, and you take it first, so you start designing from that principle and not adding a digital layer to an old process, you really win. And I think that's what we have to learn. Last week, of course, Shell and the oil industry had a big, crisis, so to say, or impact, because a lawyer and then there was a verdict in the Netherlands that they have to diminish their CO2 reduction by 45%, not only in 2050, what they were planned to do, but in 2030. So the public took over. And then they think they cannot do it. But Tesla proved that if you really want, you can change the system from thinking digital first, or in this case also electrical first. And then what we said, scalable efficiency to scalable learning, from assets, having your own assets, to being crowd-based and tapping into external flows. You don't have to have all your people exactly around your factory, around your office, based on algorithms, data, in open ecosystems and networks, instead of a closed supply chain that never changes. And the corporates feel also that it's from ratio to emotion. The public, with that democratization of knowledge and entry of information, they really feel that the public comes in. They have an opinion, not always based on ratio. It's also an emotion. At the end, they feel like, is the company really purpose-driven? Is the initiative really good? And so we go from, you cannot control that totally. You also have to have a world of trust. And with the open and the transparency of information, if you beat that trust, or if you attack that trust, you will be punished also by the system and by the open information. So organizations feel the pressure from linear logical systems with a ratio and a strategy to an exponential organization that feels like chaos. And maybe ecosystems feel sometimes like chaos, but the new talent does understand it. And they drive much more on their emotion, and they want a narrative. They want to join something bigger and really add value to a bigger narrative. I think that's also something great to take from today. What is the narrative of your region, of Thessaloniki? And that might be great input. And then what do we need? What talent do we need to do this? We need diverse talent. Of course, diversity and inclusion is a great topic that also, for different reasons, took uplift last year. And that's very valuable, because the talent doesn't want to be task-driven anymore. They want to have the passion of the explorer. They want to have commitment to a domain. Of course, they have to know something about an industry or about a certain technology or about a certain skill. But then they don't have to know everything. They look it up on the internet, for example. But the bigger habit or mindset is that they don't try to solve it on their own back down somewhere in the office. No, they go out. They connect with others to learn faster and to together solve the problem. And they ask questions. They lose control. They trust others and really are daring to be vulnerable and asking questions. And a big example is the surfing community riding the waves around the globe. And they do it. They are competing. They are committed to the domain of surfing, of course. They are competing, but they also share their moves on movies, and others can learn from it. So they also trust that the best talent will step up, and they ask each other questions, although they are competitors. And if we go to the future of work, then we can say it's a few pillars. There's forces of change. I just talked about it. Power of pull, the demographics, of course, longevity, but also you can work from anywhere in the world And we have learned that, of course, in a tremendous way last year, and this still learning it. And then we have to rethink work, because if we do like adding digital to the work or adding the new habits of work to our work environment, we will not, it will be a very difficult and disruptive feeling. But if we rethink work, and if we really say like, okay, what does digital first mean? What does ecosystem, what do ecosystems mean? And how can we really apply them? And then transforming our workforce. What is really the core of our company we want to have close by, but what can we also do in different ways and add those passionate explorers to our projects. But then we also need different contracts and different governance schemes maybe, and also reward them in a different way. And that will we have on the right side individual implications. It's like, how do we cultivate passion, lifelong learning? If you want to have scalable learning, how do you really help people to learn lifelong? But also for institutions, for the organizations, redesign it, implement new business practices and models. Like also, it's like a transformation, as we just learned. This is really an innovation and a transformative Horizon 3 sector. And then we have the public policy, and I think that's also important for you for coming days in your conference. What can the government and also others do to really help you in the regulatory space to apply this and to be successful? Like again, what I said, first built in that innovation center, they staff on demand. So when there's a challenge, and they really ask for they define the purpose and the challenge, and they ask for roles. It's not positions, it's no hierarchy. It's about how to solve this challenge together. And they staff for passion. So they don't look at you, what is your career, what is your resume? No, what is your passion? And of course you have to show that you can do something, but it's very iterative and quick learning. And then again, efficiency learning. So if you make a mistake and make an experiment from 1 week, it doesn't work, no problem. It's about the result in a few weeks. Last idea, what I want to share with you, if you apply this, and you apply this to your community or to your organization, please realize it's a transformation. And if your blue organization is your core, these are your edges, the green dots. And that's where you want to work on. And if you immediately start something new and say to the whole core, you have to change, you will experience what a core is. And what we have gained over the last decades on innovation is an immense respect on the power of the immune system of an organization. They will kick you out. And that's maybe also why it's great that Thessaloniki is maybe not in Athens or in where everybody expected it to be when it started, because then you have the space and the opportunity to grow, become a success before everybody starts having an opinion about you. And then over time, we go to the right, the edge becomes maybe the new core, because you build on success, you attract like pool-based more talent, and you grow faster, and you grow on new principles like I just shared. That's what I would like to share as a starting point. Wassili, would it help?
Thank you, Wassili. Thank you for your enthusiasm and optimism despite the prevailing uncertainty. I've noted down your points on the narrative and on the diverse talent, which we'll discuss later on again. I would like to turn to Nishita, to Washington again for a question. Nishita, I have read that COVID world has a 3 days week, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Corporates are turning the focus to the short term in order to respond to challenges and disruptions caused by the pandemic. As a result, are companies delaying innovation efforts?
Great question. And obviously the last year plus has been nothing like any of us have ever seen, right? And the impact will continue to ripple, whether it's to our societies, our markets, our businesses, our lives, right? But what we've repeatedly seen is resilience and a determination to truly adapt and thrive in the face of all this change. And it's really helped organizations focus on several things. One, what is their core and what are they really known for? What is the net new market they want to create? And what do they have to do to attract that talent, like I talked about? And I think what's important is they went through kind of a multiple set of stages, right? They had to respond to the pandemic, and that was just hunkering down, right? Hunkering down, making sure they could survive, making sure they could take care of their constituents. And as things started to continue and progress, they realized they couldn't hunker down forever, right? So they had to respond. And how were they going to respond? Either by changing their markets and starting to develop new things like masks and sanitation and air filtration systems they may never have done before, right? So they really took advantage of what was needed in the market. And now it's the thrive stage, right? How are we going to come out of this pandemic better than when we came into it? How are we going to make sure we're doubling down on the future? And so we see organizations, doing all kinds of things. In the manufacturing space, as we all know, supply chains were drastically disrupted, and nobody could get what they needed at the time they needed it. Those disruptions continue to exist. And so because of that, people are rethinking, what does it really mean to be in that manufacturing space? How do we open up the walls of those factories and understand the supply chain from end to end and truly gain visibility and create efficiencies? Using technology like edge computing, using Internet of Things devices, using the cloud to really understand and transform and share data. And in using systems, right, to connect everything together in a way that we weren't able to see it before. And those core underlying technologies that Wassili talked about, right, whether it's AI or cloud or the edge, all of those coming together in a confluence to really transform businesses. And what we really talk about these days is not about backwards compatibility. You talk about your software having to be backwards compatible. It's about businesses being forward compatible. Right? What are the markets going to do? How do you stay in front of it? How do you lead it? How do you stay compatible with the future? And that's really how we're going to calculate ROI and really calculate the return on the types of investments in people, resources, and in technology that we're doing. So while it may have seemed people were hunkering down, I think that we're really going to go into this decade of continued accelerated and exponential growth because of the innovation technology enables us to create.
Thank you, Nishita. I would like to turn to Wassili again to build on his points on the narrative and on the talent. Within the context of such transformational changes in how we work and live, do you think that innovation at the edge is also applicable to countries and cities? Are there opportunities that cities in the periphery of Europe, like Thessaloniki, can exploit and gain advantage as locations where talent and innovation can flourish? You're on mute.
Yeah, I muted my mic because I thought there was an echo. So now, absolutely, I said. So what I see is you can see a city as two things. It can be kind of an organization / structure, and then you can help to create the right governance and the right incentives to be there. And I think there it's crucial that you really feel like diversity and inclusion. We talk about it, but really apply it, and like people feel like included in a bigger narrative in that area is a crucial idea, I think. Second is you can see the city as a point as a hub in an ecosystem, and in that ecosystem, I think that is what we see now happening. That those ecosystems, you have to be known, and there again the narrative is important, and that's why this 2-day conference is so great, that it really becomes known even better. But also in those ecosystems is like creation spaces. So talent is looking for the spaces where they can, on the one hand, have a great life and a great talent opportunity, really exploit their passion, so to say, and bring their passion to the work. And on the other hand, can meet a lot of people. So it's not all cloud. It's also about meeting other people that can inspire you. Because if you inspire them, they can learn and they can get energy to the next level. So I think that the cities and regions can be two things in that talent war. And I think you're a great position because the last decade was about exponential technology. That's still an underlying driver. But I think the next decade will be about human, about really being connected to each other. Diversity inclusion is one, but it's also well-being. We have learned how important well-being is at work, but also at home, health. So I think the human side is crucial. So I think you have an excellent starting position at the moment because you don't have to start. You are already scaling.
Thank you, Wassili. Nishita, I've heard you saying that we need to take isolation out of innovation. How important is communication, collaboration, connectivity for driving innovation? Does this affect the geography of innovation and how innovation ecosystems and assets need to be reconfigured?
Yeah, great question. I am a firm believer that no matter how much talent, skill set, knowledge you have within the organization, there's just more outside of your organization than in it. And so the important thing, and Wassili talked about ecosystems a lot, we talk about it a lot as well, is how do you create that ecosystem focused on next new generation innovation and solution? And that may be broad ecosystems, right? You think about the future of health. And we think about how data plays a vital role in that, and how data needs to be transformed and shared between organizations like the insurance companies, the providers of care, the doctors themselves, the hospital systems, the at-home care. And you think about all of the variety of players in that type of ecosystem and how they need to communicate. But then you get down to how do you actually create net new businesses with a certain set of players that can bring unique characteristics for which the sum of that ecosystem is greater than the individual parts. And so I think about in spaces like future of health, and we think about data sharing, and we think about making sure that you have the base of technology that you may get through your providers like Amazon or Google, and you think about the solutions like Epic and Cerner that are really already out there that unite ecosystems of data across health systems. Then you think about, hey, there's research organizations. There are organizations that are providing the care. How do they share data more efficiently so that that research can be used at the point of care faster to help people out of this crisis at a quicker pace? And so how do you curate those ecosystems is one role. How do you become a part of those ecosystems and be a player in that ecosystem, right? There's many different roles that you can play. And I talked about manufacturing earlier, and I'll give an example of an ecosystem we're actually putting together there, which is a combination of people that play on the technology space, in the industrial product space, in the operational technology space, and in the startup VC ecosystem as well, where we're creating kind of that factory of the future, right? With players like Amazon, with players like SAP that have the back end supply chain systems, players like Siemens that produce industrial equipment, and many, many, many startups that are helping us to understand how to secure data across the edge and to the cloud and back. Many others that are helping to actually implement different technology that enables communication across various factories that are global. Right. So Wassili, you made the comment, right? Geography isn't a thing anymore. We've shown that technology has broken down the barriers of geography, but now we have to more efficiently share across those geographies, create opportunities across those geographies, and use ecosystems to bring the best of all of us to solve those problems. So that's really about taking isolation out. It's really about using that ecosystem, focusing on the business problem at hand, because technology for technology's sake is cool, but it's not helpful. So how do we actually create the understanding of what problem we're solving and have a win-win for all players in that ecosystem so that we're working towards a common goal?
Thank you, Nishita. I value your point on the fact that we have no borders. That's also true for talent. So I would like to turn to Wassili in order to deep dive a little bit on the talent issue. As work changes, the kinds of talent and the roles that talent will need to perform are changing as well. What is the makeup of the future workforce, taking also in mind the radical different mindsets of new generations? How can cities position themselves globally as hubs of talent and manage to nurture talent, which undoubtedly is one of the major pillars for innovation and ecosystems?
Yeah, so in our perspective, and what we also see at Deloitte, of course, it's a very, like 50% of the people are 30 or younger now. And so they suffered really in the pandemic, not because of their health issues, sometimes if they had bad luck, but most of the time because of the other side of isolation. It's a different isolation, but because they were not connected. And if you change that to the opposite, is why do they want to go to work? because at many organizations they love the job, they love the intellectual challenge, but that's maybe 50%. They really want to connect. They want to connect with each other, to inspire each other, to feel included, to feel like being part of a bigger group, but also a bigger narrative, and to really be part of a bigger meaning, to make an impact that really matters to them. And so I would say the new contract is that we are not expecting them to serve their contract. Of course, at the end, you have to make an agreement, and of course, there might be a point that you discuss about it, but at the end, they really want to be part of a bigger goal, a bigger purpose. And if you can bring that to them, then they don't talk about the hours, and they maybe have the freedom to operate in a more, we think like it's a free way. When the weather is nice, they go out surfing. But at the end, they're dedicated to make something happen. And that's a much bigger value, I would say. And if we really cherish and acknowledge that they are in there for their passion, I think then we can do great things together. But then we have to really open up and let go control on other sides. That would be my basic concept for the content. Of course, you can bring that down to KPIs and to contracts and to arrangements. They are less interested in cars and more in having a budget to use for their own freedom, or maybe to take a few months off. But those are the details. These are the general concepts. It's an answer to your question, Wassili, because I think that's also connected to what Nishita said, is that if that's where ecosystems meet each other, when they really feel like, because you cannot hide if you're not truly passionate and authentic on what you want, and ecosystems recognize that. That's where they, at the end, really connect. Of course, you can connect on a contractual level, but at the end, they connect on a, it's more freedom. So you have to connect, you have to trust each other that you are in the same direction, to build on Nishita's point.
Thank you very much, Wassili. Nishita, based on your global perspective and experience, what trends are you seeing with how organizations are applying emerging technologies to shape business strategy?
Perfect. So I think they fall into three macro categories. The first one we call the heart of the enterprise, right? So they're really trying to figure out, how do I use technology to amplify my enterprise? How do I use it to modernize? And what's going to be the source of competitive advantage for organizations? And it's also a threat, right, to ongoing survival. So we've got to look at it in both of those ways, right? And as a result, the distinction between corporate strategy and tech strategy is blurring, and they both have to inform each other. And I think that's very core to how people are applying emerging tech. It's no longer on the side of the business or the CIO's job. It's the business's job. It's the CEO's job. It's the board's job. And so that conversation really sparking an understanding of what is our future and how is tech going to shape it. The second trend we really talk about is at the intersection of data and security, right? Obviously, organizations have large and larger volumes of data that are truly untapped, right? Because the trend has been collect as much as you can. Forget about whether it's important or not, but collect. Now we've got to figure out, well, what is important? How do we separate signal from noise? How do we truly use that data to drive insights into our businesses and into our clients' businesses? And so really scaling machine learning modeling, decision-making, and security automation is incredibly important. And that security piece, right, cannot be an afterthought. It has to be designed up front. It has to be thought of up front, and it needs to be part of the solution as opposed to part of the door that keeps people out. Because at the end of the day, as we talked about ecosystems, you have to share that data to get value out of it. The key is, how do you share it safely? How do you protect it? How do you ensure people's rights continue to be taken into consideration first and foremost, in addition to using that insight to influence industries? So that's a lot of what's there. And I'll add to the security, the ethics piece of it. We talk a lot about tech ethics, and just because technology can do something, we really have to ask ourselves, should it do something? How do we take the biases out of that technology? Because listen, technology is only as unbiased as the human who designed it is. And we all know as humans, we have biases. So we need to make sure we're checking ourselves, creating, as Wassili said, the diverse workforce that's helping us to make sure that we're thinking of all of the edge cases, and we're thinking of all the challenges that could occur and solving and mitigating for them up front. And then the last trend I'll talk about is kind of the integration of people in tech. Right? Everybody has this dystopian view of the future where robots are taking over, right? I actually firmly believe we're in the age of with. It's about people working with technology, right? People working with automation, people working with robotics, people working with data. And so what technology is going to enable us to do as people is focus on the things we are really good at: connecting with others, creating experiences, understanding how the data is going to impact the future of our world, whereas tech is going to be that enabler. And so it's incredibly important for us to make sure we understand that connection, and we're planning for that in mind. And that we also have places where we're experimenting with the digital and physical coming together to form a more human experience, personally and professionally, right? Experiences that are highly personalized, extend seamlessly from online to in person, right? And continuing to create a way that technology improves our safety, our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and our commitment to helping all of us thrive in the new economy.
Thank you very much, Nishita. One question to Wassili on handy advice. You have both helped us zoom out to the future to sense the impact of shaping trends in the future world. Now, if we zoom in today's world, what is the one or two things we can do that can help us make a step closer to the things to come?
Yeah, so a great question. And if you zoom in, and maybe I can easily build on Nishita's 3 points. So it was like the broader trend and the CEO, and everybody has to step in. If you apply that to your region, who is the CEO and of your community, so to say, or the CEOs? It should not be one. It's an ecosystem, of course, in Thessaloniki. But if the CEOs of the organizations, but also the mayor of the city, etc., if they can really create together the narrative of your initiative, of your movement, and share that, because then you can attract the best talent, and they should really show that they are behind it. So that will be my first. Second, on organizational level, the participating organizations, they can deliver the infrastructure Nishita was talking about the data, the digital, the cloud, etc. But then they should be at the forefront, because otherwise you're not a trusted partner of the globe with that talent if you're not showing that forefront yourself. So that will be the second layer. And the third layer is the individual, the talent. Please make sure that you can really make sure that they feel included there in your region, and also that they can really feel like they can bring their passion, and they can add to that bigger narrative. If you combine those three and align those three, the narrative of the region, the big power of the organizations that are technology enabled, and then the passion of the explorer of the talent you have, then I think it will be easy to scale.
Thank you, Wassili. Before closing, I would appreciate a final word and a key takeaway from it for our audience to keep following our very interesting discussion. Nishita.
Sure. Thanks again for having us today. Great conversation. I've enjoyed the welcome and the comments from my co-panelist. I would say a couple things. First and foremost, make sure that you are focused on the business impact at hand. Right? Technology is a great enabler, but figure out what is the problem you're trying to solve, what new market are you trying to enter, what new solution are you trying to create. Then it's what technologies will help me get there, and how do I use a combination of those technologies to achieve my goal. And then last but not least is who in that ecosystem is going to be a part of creating the solution, because you can scale faster, you can move faster, and you can create better solutions with the combination of ecosystem players. So I'd say that first and foremost. And last, but certainly not least, as we've talked about on the talent front, the importance in focusing on ensuring you have the right talent helping you along the journey. And that talent can be inside your organization or outside. They could be gig workers, they could be contract workers, they could be ecosystem providers, and obviously your core group of talent within your organization. How are you helping to retrain, train, and continue to advance them for the common good and for the benefit of the individual businesses?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nishita. Wassili, last word from you as well.
Well, I think, first of all, compliment. The first thing what I said is going back to the beginning is that the best passion of the explorers are opening up, and that's what you're doing. You open up to a big community globally to learn and to get inspiration. So I think this is the right attitude. And we also know that innovation is about 10% vision, 10% new ideas. I think you both have already. Maybe the 10% vision you can turn into a narrative and then share it with the globe after this conference. And then 80% is relentlessness, having the founder spirit and having the relentlessness to iterate and learn and keep going. And I think you have been doing it. Otherwise, we would not have this big conference and also the success so far. But if you can keep that with your fellow leaders going forward, I'm confident it will scale. So I wish you lots of joy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Both understand that talent is the cornerstone of innovation. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to my partners at Deloitte, Nishita, Henry, and Wassili Bertoen for the valuable insights. Thank you very much, Nishita. Thank you very much, Wassili, for your commitment. You have surely helped us open up our minds to a very different world that appears to be much closer than we think. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.